Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vivek Kumar from Department of Mechanical Engineering, School of Technology, Pandit Deen Dayal Petroleum University, Gandhinagar. In the last video, I have introduced the basic method of concept embodiment in product design and development process. We have discussed the overview and context of journal process and checklist for concept embodiment. In addition to these basic methods, some advanced methods, namely functional modeling and failure mode effect analysis, proved to be a good supplement to concept embodiment process. These advanced methods will be discussed in this video lecture. So here we will be discussing two methods. First is the system modeling and second is the failure mode and effect analysis. System modelings are mathematical or physical representation of a product. It is used to predict product performance under varying input, environmental and boundary conditions. System modeling uses mechanical design principles to analyze the concept layout and improve them with respect to the problems faced by the development team. In system modeling, we use laws of science and engineering such as Newton's law of motion, heat conduction and convection equations, gravitational law, etc. Or we can build the prototype to test the performance of a product. Failure modes and effect analysis is a systematic method for evaluating a process to identify where and how it might fail. It also assesses the relative impact of different failures, mode of different failures, in order to identify the part of the process that are in need of a change. FMEA include the reviews of the following: steps in the process, failure modes, that is what could go wrong, failure causes, why would the failure happens, failure effect, what would be the consequences of each failures. Team use FMEA to evaluate processes for possible failures and prevent them by correcting the processes proactively rather than reacting to adverse event after the failure. This prevention may reduce risk of harm to both product and customer. FMEA is particularly useful in evaluating a new process prior to its implementation. It is also used in assessing the effect of a proposed change to an existing product and process. Now let us discuss the system modeling. The basic input to start system modeling is a functional model of a concept. The functional model represents a concept in the form of generic black box model, which receive input in the form of energy, material and information. The functional model modifies these inputs and provides the output again in the form of energy, materials and information. This functional model is decomposed using fast or subtract and operate technique to provide primary, secondary and unintended functions associated with the concept. These functional models are then extended to provide design parameters associated with manufacturing decisions under concept embodiment. The mathematical and physical prototype models are the means to perform this extension. In mathematical model, we depict system using simplified sketches. Then we will identify the forces and the moments that will be acting between the different components or the member of the system. Then we establish the type of the contact between each members using the stiffness spring component and the temper component, and then establish the governing equation to predict the performance of the system. Prototype model is also used to perform the system modeling. A prototype is generally used to evaluate a new design by the engineers and in certain cases by the users. Prototyping provides specifications for real working system rather than a theoretical one. The prototyping model is a concept embodiment method in which a working model is built and tested either virtually or physically. It is then reworked until an acceptable outcomes or the targets are achieved from the process, from which the complete system or product can be developed. This model works best in scenarios where not all the project requirements are known in the detail. It is an iterative trial and error process that can take place between the developers and the users. Virtual and physical modeling of a product provide in-depth understanding in operation and possible improvement in a product. Three tasks are needed to perform a system modeling of a product. They are high-level model, balance relationship, and physical prototype model. High-level models deals with identifying important customer need, establishing engineering specification, finding critical component and their possible failure modes based on functional model developed earlier. Based on this information, governing principles or laws are selected for each critical component of a high-level model. Balance relationship. In this task, mathematical models are formulated from the information gathered in the first task. Basic engineering principles and the knowledge of science and mathematics is used to represent the product in the form of governing equations. Most of these equations are in the form of partial differential equation. Solution of these equations yield performance of a product under given operating or boundary conditions. Last stage is the physical prototype models. In certain cases, it is not possible to build mathematical model due to complexity of problem or unavailability of expertise in that particular engineering domain. In such case, building physical prototype for testing will be a better option. The purpose here is to build a top of bench scaled down or original model to perform certain performance related experiment. It is not always necessary that whole of the product is to be built for testing. Sometimes specific component of a product can be only built for testing. This will significantly reduce the time and prove to be economical in the product development and design process. Let us perform system modeling for bilge pump product discussed in the previous lecture. Let us apply the three tasks of system modeling to this product. First task is the high-level model. High-level model provides many customer needs from which two important needs are selected. These needs will govern the system modeling. They are as follows: that the pump start automatically pumping the water and it will remove sufficient quantity of the water over the time. Now we will apply the basic relationship. In the second stage, we will apply the knowledge of science and mathematics to develop a mathematical model. The design parameters here are pressure, head, and velocity at the inlet and outlet of the pump. The governing equation or the principle will be Bernoulli theorem. Fluid will be, in this case, is fresh or salty water, or in case if the pump is not primed, it will be air. Now we need to determine the required power from the motor to transport the water. So first we will be applying the Bernoulli equations between the inlet and the outlet of the pump. So after applying these Bernoulli equations, let us assume that the velocity at the inlet and the outlet of the pumps are negligible. So the Bernoulli equation will be reduced to only the pressure heads and the height head. So we will be able to calculate the pressure differential required to transport the salty water as 28 kilopascal, and the fresh water pressure difference will be calculated as 24 kilopascal. While performing balance relationship, two situations will arise. In the first situation, or we can say that case A, the water is not present. It can be assumed that the water is not present in the propeller or the piston of the pump. Hence, additional work need to be done to prime the pump. In case A, the pump is not primed, so it will be handling the air. Now we will be using the isentropic condition, reversible and adiabatic condition to find the volume of the air removed by the pump. So we will be applying this expression, that is the isentropic law. Here P2 is the atmospheric pressure of the air and P1 will be the pressure of the air inside the pump. It will be equivalent to 64 kilopascal, that is atmospheric pressure minus pressure difference, which we have been calculated here, plus some losses associated with the process. So by applying this relationship or this law, we will be able to calculate that 28% of the volume, differential volume, is to be primed to start the pumping of the water. In second scenario or the case B, we can assume that the pump is primed, that is the water is filled in the impeller or the piston of the pump. In both the cases, the energy for operating the pump is to be taken from the energy available in the waves of the sea. Here we will be using the ideal wave energy equation to develop the mathematical model. As per the data available, about 10 to 1000 joule per minute energy is available from the waves in the sea. Conservatively, let us assume that 10 joule per minute is available for our application. 10 joule is available for our application for 2 seconds. If the efficiency of the pump is 50% and the customer needs specify 8 liters per hour removal rate of the water, then the available power from the waves can be calculated using 10 joule divided by 2 seconds will be energy into efficiency of the pump. It will be calculated as available power will be calculated as 2.5 watt. Then the power needed to perform this operation will be calculated as differential of the pressure into the lubricant flow rate requirement. It is calculated as 0.05 watt. As the power available is higher than the power needed to perform the operation, the pump will work as per the customer need in both the cases A and B. Now the final stage is to build a prototype model. A prototype can be developed to verify the results from the developed numerical model. Mechanical embodiment principles or guidelines are supplementary activities performed to improve the system modeling in concept embodiment process. 5 design principles should be considered in system modeling. These are alignment of forces, alignment of components in an assembly, deflection, forces in members, and vibration reduction. We will discuss each of these principles briefly. First embodiment principle is alignment of forces. Forces within an assembly produces relative motion between the different components. The position and orientation of these forces are important as they transmit power and motion in safe and reliable manner. This has to be controlled by the designer. There are 3 types of the forces involved in machines. They are weight or inertia forces, frictional forces, and applied forces, which are also known as the external load. First thing in deciding the alignment of the forces is to draw the free body diagram of each component in the machine. Now identify the position and magnitude of each of 3 different types of the forces in each component. Then we will compute the vector sum of weight forces. First we will be going with the weight forces of all the components and find the location where the resultant of all weight forces in the machine is located. We will be using these formula to identify the centroid of the weight forces as xc coordinate, yc coordinate and zc coordinate. Now we will perform the similar exercise for the frictional forces and finally for the external forces that will be imposed on the system. Finally, we will reconfigure the position of the machine component or the forces such that resultant of all these three forces will be lying on the top of each other. If they are not, then there is a tendency that a part will move in an undesired manner in the assembly. We have to reduce this tendency to as low as possible. Second principle is alignment of bodies. Often subsystems of an assembly does not fit well with respect to each other in the complete assembly. This happens due to poor kinematic layout. Some of the examples are circuit boards did not fit automobile or the bus frame, or casings may not fit properly around the internals of a machine. This will result into a frustrating situation while performing repairing and maintenance operations of such machine. These mechanical interfacing issues in sub-assemblies can be categorized into two aspects. First is the positioning and second is constraining. Constraining is taken care of by using welding operations or by using the fasteners. Positioning is often ignored, which create problems of interference between different parts later on. The proper positioning of sub-assemblies can be done by performing 3-to-1 alignment technique. In this technique, three perpendicular faces are identified on each sub-assemblies or the component of machine. Each face are marked with the 3 point, 2 point and 1 point respectively. Now the 3-point face is aligned or slide to meet another face of other sub-assemblies such as the 3 point on this face. This will align the two faces of the different machine component within an assembly. Now the 3-face point is slide such that second perpendicular face containing 2 points will come into contact with another face. Now we have 3 points and 2 points which will be completely constrained within the machine. Now the third face is slide in the third direction such that single point on the third face will become coincident with the another face of the sub-assembly. This procedure will completely position a sub-assembly with the main assembly. The third principle is deflection reduction. The machine elements are designed on three criteria, that are strength, rigidity and wear. The applied mechanic principles are used to apply or to design the machine component according to these criteria. Most mechanical products experience deflection in elastic member. If the issue of excess deflection is not resolved, then it may lead to other problems such as vibration. This leads to premature failure of the critical machine elements such as bearing. The excessive deflection is generally caused by the twist and arm amplification. Twist is defined as deflection out of planar structures such as bridges, aeroplane wings and automobile chassis. The twist is caused by equal and opposite internal forces acting at certain distance apart. The twisting can be minimized by providing additional members that would stiff the structure against the twist. Arm amplification is a phenomenon observed in product or machine which operates using a lever. Examples of such machines are linear bearings, slider carriage, etc. In the distance, in such application, one end of lever is constrained or loaded, and on the other end a small force is applied. The lever is connected to a fulcrum at some point in between. If the distance at which a small force is applied is large as compared to the distance of the constraint point, that is LL is very high as compared to LR, then the force at the constraint point, our constraint end, will be very high and cause excessive deflections. Such problems can be avoided by carefully selecting or adjusting the position of the fulcrum. Another design principle or the embodiment principle is forces in members. One of the essential requirements of mechanical design is that each member of machine should transmit the forces or moment without undergoing failure. If the equivalent stress within a specimen exceeds the permissible value, then we need to increase the specific dimensions of the component. This will reduce the value of the stress well below the safe limit. This task can be done either by applying the knowledge of machine design or theories of failure, or by optimizing the shape of the component using finite element analysis based software. Alternatively, the stiffness of the structural members can also be increased by adding additional materials in the form of triangular members known as gussets. These gussets can be specifically added to the critical section of the machine component or the structures. Critical sections are those locations which are subjected to maximum shear stress or moments. Another problem associated with mechanical embodiment designs are excessive vibrations. These vibrations can be mechanical or acoustic in the nature. The level of the vibration can be reduced using three approaches. First is to reduce the source of the vibration. Second, change the transmission, and third is reduce the transmission. First, we need to identify or map the source of the vibration in the machine. The vibration is normally generated due to unbalance in the rotating or reciprocating parts. It is transmitted to other component or structure through a cage, screw, or body of the assembly. In first approach, that is reduce the source of the vibration, we need to check whether vibrations are generated due to unbalance in the machine or due to the loosen mountings or the fasteners or inappropriate support such as cantilever beams used for mounting the rotors. Corrective action should be taken if the source of the vibration is one of these. In second approach, change the transmission, we will measure the natural frequency of the component which are generating or transmitting the vibration in the machine. Now we will reconfigure the dimensions or the shape of these components to reduce their natural frequency so that amplification of the vibration level can be reduced to as low as possible. In the third approach, that is reduce the transmission, we would insert dampers or dissipative materials within the travel path of the vibrations. This will reduce the transmission level of the vibration within the component of machine. We can also apply viscoelastic coatings over the material surface or the metallic surfaces of the component, whereas wherever possible to reduce the vibration transmission. Failure mode and effect analysis, or FMEA, is advanced method for performing the concept embodiment. Failure mode and effect analysis is an advanced method used in conjunction with basic methods to perform the concept embodiment process. This method will improve the overall quality of the product. The product quality can be categorized into two groups. One is the customer quality and another is the engineering quality. The customer quality refers to minimizing the variation in the performance of product under different environmental and user conditions. This is ensured by the robust design of the product. Engineering quality ensures that all functions of the product satisfy or exceed the customer expectation. The quality is ensured by adequate strength, reliability, and accident prevention measures introduced in the product. It is also known as the expected quality of the product. System modeling and embodiment checklist are focused on identifying customer needs related to expected quality of the product. FMEA is an advanced analytical technique used by the design team to identify, define, and eliminate to as extent as possible potential failure mode of the product or machines. FMEA is a tool used to discover failure at its earliest possible point in a product or process design. Discovering a failure earlier in the product development using FMEA provides many benefits. Some of the prominent benefits are improving product reliability and quality, increasing customer satisfaction, early identification and elimination of potential product failure modes, then prioritizing product efficiency. Another advantage is minimize late changes and associated cost in product development. Now the question is when to perform FMEA. The FMEA is a continuous process. It can be visualized that throughout the product development cycle, design change and updates are made to the product and process. These changes can often introduce some new failure modes. It is therefore important to review and update the FMEA in following cases. That is when a new product or process is being initiated, that is at the beginning of the cycle. Changes are made to the operating condition of the product or process. A change is made to the product or process design. The product and process are interrelated. When the product design is changed, the process is impacted and vice versa. When new regulations are instituted in the industries, or when customer feedback indicate problem in the product or process. Now we will discuss how to perform FMEA. The process for conducting an FMEA process is straightforward. The basic steps are being outlined here. The first step is listing. First, we will list each sub-assemblies and the component of a process or a product along with its function. The reference number of the components or sub-assemblies can be taken from the bill of materials associated with the product or process. Second step is to identify and list potential failures. Identify and list potential failures for each product component. Simple prototype models fabricated using foam and wood can be used for identifying failure modes. Techniques such as sketch, free body diagram, force flow, and process flow diagram should be used to understand the basic physics associated with the failure mode. Some of the examples can be corrosion, fracture, vibration, delamination, sagging, cracking, seizure, burning, wear, unstable, resonance, fatigue, and so forth. The third step is to list possible causes or mechanisms of the failure mode. Some common examples are increase in tolerance values, assembly errors, poor maintenance, impact loading, overstresses or overloading, and so forth. Next step is to list the possible effect of the failure on the environment, property, and users. Examples can be noise generations, poor appearance of the product, flying debris, unpleasant odor, inoperative product, or erratic operation of the product, and so forth. Then we will rate the likelihood of occurrence of the failure. The rating should be on a scale of 1 to 10 as depicted. Here 1 will reflect that there will be no effect. Rating 2 to 3 represent low or relatively few failures. Rating 4 to 6 will suggest moderate or the occasional failure of the component or the product. 7 to 8 refers that the failure rate is very high and there will be the chances of the repeated failures of the product. Rating 9 to 10 will suggest very high failure rate or the failure is almost inevitable. In the next step, we will estimate the severity of the failure. Again, a scale from 1 to 10 will be used. Here 1 will correspond that there will be no effect or there will be no severity of the failure. Second rating 2 will refer very minor and this severity will only be noticed by the discriminating users. 3 will be used when there is minor severities, that is affect very little to the system and will be noticed by the average customer. Rating 4 to 6 will suggest moderate severity of the failure. This will be, in this case, most of the customers will be annoyed. 7 to 8 will represent high and this will causes a loss of the primary function and the customer dissatisfaction. 9 to 10 represent very high and hazardous failure. Here the product may become inoperative. Customer will be angered and the failure result unsafe operation and the injury of the personnel that will be using the next step. List the current and expected design controls that have been incorporated into the product for detecting the failure. This corresponds to failure detection before the product hits the productions. Again, a scale of 1 to 10 is used to quantify the detection of the failure. Here 1 represents that the failure will be almost or certainly detected before it happens. 2 represents the high detection rate. 3 represent moderate. 4 to 6 represent moderate with the customer annoyed with it. 7 to 8 represent low level of the detection of the failure. And 9 to 10 represent very remote or almost uncertainty in the detection of the failure before it will be happening. The next step is to determine the risk priority number or RPN. It will quantify and prioritize the relative importance of each failure on a scale of 1 to 1000. RPN is calculated as follows. It will be a multiplication of severity, likelihood of the occurrence and detection level of the failure. It is equal to S multiplied by O into D. These have been calculated in the earlier steps of the FMEA procedure. If the value of the RPN is 1000, it will correspond to certain hazardous and harmful failure. If its value is 1, then it corresponds to unlikely or unimportant failure of the product. Rating above 100 will suggest that the failure is likely to occur, and if its value is above 30, then we must be incorporating certain features to safeguard the component against the failure. Next step is recommended action for each failure mode. After assessing and analyzing the risk priority number, a recommended action plan is formulated for all the failure modes. Afterwards, duties and responsibilities are assigned to relevant technical personnels in the design team. Failures associated with high priority number should be prioritized and tackled first. Example of recommendation leads to revision in component, subassembly, material specification, conducting design of experiment and prototyping to determine corrective actions to reduce the chance of the failure. The last step is to implement the corrective actions mentioned in the previous step. It includes implement corrective actions from the recommendation, updating the SOD means severity, likelihood of occurrence, and detection ratings established in the previous step. Then we have to recalculate the RPN and update the design calculations. The final step is to document the FMEA and continuously update it during the product development process and product life cycle. This table represents a template used for recording or documenting the FMEA procedure in product design and development process. The first row will contain the information of the product and design team which will be performing the FMEA activity. In the subsequent rows, information such as part and the function, part name and its function, potential failure modes, potential effect of failure, and another component of FMEA exercise such as severity, occurrence, detection, RPA and number is listed. The table depicted here represents the results from FMEA conducted for an front door sub-assembly of a wagon. As indicated earlier, the upper row gives details of the component and design teams which have conducted the FMEA process. The first column represents the part name and the number as mentioned in the bill of the material. In the second column, we will represent the one of the potential failure mode from which which is identified as corroded interiors. The third column represents the severity of the failure, which have been quantified as 7 out of a scale of 10. Potential causes or the mechanisms are listed in this column. In the fifth column, as insufficient and inappropriate packs applied in the door assemblies. Occurrence of different failure mechanism is rated between 4 to 6. The detection feature and its scale is presented in these two rows. Based on all these information, RPN number, that is risk priority number, is determined, which is noticed to be lying above 100 in 4 cases, 4 possible failure mechanism cases. Hence, it is essential to recommend and implement corrective actions to reduce the chances of failure among these mechanisms for which RPN is lying above 100 value. With this, I close this session on advanced method of concept embodiment process. If you have any queries, please write in the comment section. In the next video lecture, I will discuss how to design a product for ease in the manufacturing processes.